Discipline fails when stress arrives because it was never built to survive pressure. Most people design their routines for calm days, then wonder why everything collapses when life gets hard. But discipline can be rebuilt to hold under any condition, to function when motivation is gone, and to stay intact when structure around you breaks. You are listening to Discipline That Does Not Collapse Under Stress. Full audiobook on Ruthless Equanimity. Introduction: Why Discipline Collapses Under Pressure. You built routines. You followed systems. You felt in control. Then pressure arrived. A deadline moved. Someone got sick. Plans fell apart. And within days, the discipline you worked months to build disappeared. You stopped exercising. You skipped planning. You ate poorly. You worked reactively. The structure collapsed. And you told yourself you would restart when things calmed down. But things never fully calmed down. This is not a character flaw. This is a design flaw. Your discipline was built for stability. And stability is rare. Most of life is pressure. Most days are not ideal. And if your systems only work when conditions are perfect, they will fail more often than they succeed. Real discipline is not what survives calm. It is what survives chaos. This audiobook will show you how to build discipline that does not collapse under stress. You will learn why pressure destroys most systems and how to redesign yours so they hold regardless of circumstances. You will stop depending on motivation and start depending on structure that functions whether you feel like it or not. Here is how to use this audiobook. After each chapter, pause and apply one principle immediately. Do not wait until you finish. Apply as you go. Discipline is not built through understanding. It is built through action. And action starts now. Let us begin with why stress is the real test of discipline. Chapter 1. Stress is the real test of discipline. Marcus had a morning routine that never failed. He woke at 5:30. He ran for 40 minutes. He planned his day. He worked in focused blocks. For 8 months, the system was flawless. Then his company restructured. His role changed. His workload doubled. Suddenly, mornings felt impossible. The alarm rang and he hit snooze. The run was skipped. The planning disappeared. Within 2 weeks, the entire routine was gone. And Marcus blamed himself. He thought he had lost discipline. But he had not lost discipline. His system had never been tested, because it was only designed for calm. This is the mistake most people make. They build discipline when life is easy. They create routines that depend on having time, energy, and stability. And when those conditions exist, the routines work. But life does not stay easy. Pressure arrives, schedules shift, stress accumulates. And the routines that felt automatic suddenly feel impossible. Not because you changed, because the conditions changed, and your system had no resilience. The psychological mechanism here is environmental dependency. When discipline is tied to specific conditions, it only functions in those conditions. If your routine requires waking at 5:30, it breaks when sleep is disrupted. If your system requires an hour of free time, it breaks when your schedule fills. If your discipline depends on feeling energized, it breaks when stress drains you, and most systems are built this way. They work in ideal circumstances, but they have no flexibility, no adaptation, no survival capacity, so the moment pressure increases, they collapse. This is why stress is the real test. Anyone can be disciplined when life is stable. The hard part is staying disciplined when everything falls apart, when sleep is broken, when time disappears, when energy is low. That is when discipline proves itself, not by performing perfectly, but by surviving imperfectly. And survival requires systems designed for chaos, not systems designed for calm. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone meal preps every Sunday. They cook all their meals for the week. It works perfectly. Then their parent has a health crisis. Sunday is spent at the hospital. No meal prep happens. The week is chaos. And they eat junk food every day. The system collapsed because it had no backup. Now imagine they had designed for pressure. The ideal is meal prep on Sunday. The backup is buying pre-cooked healthy options. The emergency is protein bars and fruit. When chaos hits, they do not collapse. They shift to the backup. The system survives because it was built with stress in mind. Another example, someone exercises at the gym every morning at 6. The habit is solid. Then they travel for work. Different city, different time zone, no gym nearby. The routine breaks. They skip exercise for a week. The identity weakens. Now imagine they had built flexibility. The ideal is gym at 6. The backup is bodyweight workout in the hotel room. The emergency is 10 push-ups before bed. When travel happens, they do not stop. They adapt. The chain stays alive because the system had layers. This is the shift. Stop building discipline for ideal conditions. Start building discipline for worst conditions. Because worst conditions are where discipline is tested. And if your system cannot survive the test, it is not real discipline. It is conditional behavior. And conditional behavior disappears the moment conditions change. Here is the script you need when stress arrives and discipline feels impossible. Do not say, "I lost my discipline." Say, "My system was not designed for this level of stress." Do not say, "I failed." Say, "My structure collapsed because it had no flexibility." Do not say, "I will restart when life calms down." Say, "I will rebuild my system to survive chaos starting now." This reframe is critical, because when you blame yourself, you stay stuck. When you blame the system, you can fix it. And the system is always fixable. You do not need more willpower. You do not need more motivation. You need better design. And better design starts with accepting that stress is not the exception. Stress is the norm, and your discipline must be built to function inside it. Now here is the practical exercise. Think about the last time your discipline collapsed. Write down what was happening. Was it a schedule change, a sleep disruption, an emotional strain? Identify the stressor. Now ask yourself, did my system account for this? Did I have a version of my routine that could survive this condition? If the answer is no, that is why it collapsed, and that is what you will fix. The reason this works is because awareness is the first step to redesign. Most people never analyze why their discipline broke. They just feel shame and try to restart. But restarting without redesigning guarantees the same collapse next time. You need to build differently. You need to build for pressure, not for perfection. Think about people whose discipline seems unshakable. They face the same stress you do. But their systems survive, not because they are stronger, because their systems are flexible. They have backups, they have layers, they have structures that scale down without breaking. That is not luck. That is design. Right now, your discipline probably depends on ideal conditions. And that is why it collapses under pressure. But starting today, you will design for chaos. You will build systems that survive stress. And when stress arrives, your discipline will not collapse. It will adapt. And adaptation is what creates permanence. Stress is the real test, and your system must be built to pass it. Chapter 2. Why Willpower Vanishes. When life gets hard, Elena could resist anything when life was calm. She said no to desserts. She woke up early. She stayed focused at work. Her willpower felt strong. Then her landlord told her the building was being sold. She had 30 days to find a new apartment. The stress was constant. Every evening she scrolled listings. Every morning she woke up anxious. And within a week the willpower was gone. She ate junk food. She hit snooze. She avoided tasks. She knew what she should do. But she could not make herself do it. And she thought she was weak. But willpower was not weak. It was depleted. This is the truth most people do not understand. Willpower is not a character trait. It is a limited resource. and stress drains it faster than anything else. Under normal conditions, you can resist temptation. You can make hard choices. You can push through discomfort. But under stress, the capacity shrinks. And when the capacity is gone, willpower is not just hard to use. It is unavailable. You are not choosing to fail. Your brain is operating in a state where self-control is biologically suppressed. The psychological mechanism here is ego depletion under stress. Every decision you make, every impulse you resist, every temptation you override, it all draws from the same mental reserve. That reserve is called executive function. It lives in the prefrontal cortex, and it is responsible for planning, decision-making, and self-control. Under calm conditions, this system functions well. But under stress, cortisol floods your system. Blood flow shifts away from the prefrontal cortex. The executive function weakens, and when it weakens, willpower disappears. Not because you stop trying, because the system that enables willpower is offline. This is why you can follow a diet for weeks and then binge after one stressful day. This is why you can stay productive for months and then collapse after one crisis. This is why discipline that felt automatic suddenly feels impossible. The stress changed your brain state, and in that brain state, willpower is not accessible. You are trying to use a tool that is no longer available, and no amount of trying harder will bring it back. Because the problem is not effort, the problem is capacity. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone is staying disciplined with their budget. They track every expense. They resist impulse purchases. Then they have a terrible week at work. A project fails. A colleague criticizes them. Stress spikes. That weekend they go shopping and spend $300 on things they do not need. Not because they stopped caring about money. Because stress depleted their willpower. And when willpower is gone, impulse control vanishes. The brain defaults to immediate relief. And relief does not look like discipline. It looks like distraction. Another example. Someone quits checking their phone at night. They leave it in another room. They read instead. The habit holds for a month. Then they get into a serious argument with their partner. The emotional strain is heavy. That night they reach for the phone, they scroll for 2 hours. They feel worse afterward, but they could not stop. Not because they chose poorly, because the stress depleted the capacity to resist. And without that capacity, the old habit returned. The path of least resistance won. This is the core problem. Most people build discipline strategies that assume willpower will always be available. They rely on resisting temptation in the moment. They rely on making hard choices under pressure. They rely on pushing through discomfort. And when life is calm, this works. But when stress arrives, willpower is the first thing to go. And if your discipline depends on willpower, your discipline collapses the moment stress increases. Here is the script you need when willpower feels absent. Do not say, "I have no willpower." Say, "My willpower is depleted and I need to reduce reliance on it." Do not say, "I need to try harder." Say, "I need to remove decisions that drain willpower." Do not say, "I am weak under stress." Say, "Stress depletes willpower faster than I can recover it and I need a different approach." This reframe is everything. Because when you blame yourself, you stay stuck. When you understand depletion, you can design around it. And designing around willpower is what creates discipline that survives stress. You do not try to build more willpower. You build systems that do not need it. Now here is the practical exercise. Identify 3 behaviors in your life that currently depend on willpower. These are moments where you have to resist, decide, or push yourself. It could be resisting snacks, it could be avoiding distractions, it could be getting out of bed on time. Write them down. Now ask yourself, how can I remove the need for willpower in each of these? If the behavior is resisting snacks, do not keep snacks in the house. Remove the temptation entirely. If the behavior is avoiding distractions, put your phone in another room before you work. Eliminate the option. If the behavior is getting out of bed, move the alarm across the room so you have to stand. Remove the choice. The goal is to design the environment so the right action is automatic. So willpower is not required. Because when stress arrives and willpower depletes, the structure still holds. The reason this works is because environmental design is stress-proof. Willpower is not. When you remove temptation, you do not have to resist it. When you automate decisions, you do not have to make them. When you eliminate friction from good behaviors, you do not have to push. The behavior happens because the environment supports it, not because you forced it. And what does not depend on force does not collapse under pressure. Most people think discipline is about being strong enough to resist anything, but that is exhausting. And it fails under stress. Real discipline is about being smart enough to not have to resist. It is about removing the need for willpower by designing systems where the right choice is the easy choice. That is what survives chaos. That is what holds when capacity drops. That is what allows discipline to function even when you have nothing left. Think about people whose discipline seems unshakable under stress. They do not have infinite willpower. They have better systems. They do not rely on resisting temptation. They remove it. They do not rely on making hard decisions in the moment. They make decisions in advance. They do not rely on pushing through discomfort. They reduce the discomfort by design. That is not superhuman strength. That is intelligent design. Right now, most of your discipline probably depends on willpower, and that is why it collapses under stress. Because stress depletes willpower faster than you can rebuild it. But if you redesign your system so they do not require willpower, they will survive. They will function when you are exhausted. They will hold when life is chaotic. They will carry you through pressure without requiring you to fight yourself every step of the way. So stop trying to build more willpower. Start building systems that do not need it. Remove the temptations. Automate the decisions. Eliminate the friction. Make the right choice the automatic choice. And when stress arrives, your discipline will not collapse. Because it was never built on willpower in the first place. It was built on design, and design does not deplete. Willpower vanishes when life gets hard, but systems do not. Build accordingly. Build. Chapter 3, Systems That Hold. When motivation is gone, Daniel was motivated to change his life. He watched videos, he read books, he felt inspired, he created a detailed plan. Wake at 5, meditate for 20 minutes, journal for 10, exercise for an hour. Work in deep focus blocks. The first week was perfect. He followed every step. He felt unstoppable. The second week was harder, but he pushed through. By the third week, the motivation was fading. By the fourth, it was gone. And without motivation, the plan collapsed. He stopped waking early. He skipped meditation. He worked reactively. And he blamed himself for not staying motivated. But motivation was never meant to last, and his discipline was built on something that always fades. This is the trap most people fall into. They start with motivation. They use it to build routines, and for a while it works. The excitement carries them, the newness fuels them. But motivation is an emotion, and emotions do not last. They spike, they fade, they fluctuate based on mood, sleep, stress, and circumstance. You cannot build permanent discipline on temporary emotion. Motivation gets you started, but it will not keep you going. And if your system depends on feeling motivated, it will collapse the moment that feeling disappears. The psychological mechanism here is emotional volatility versus structural stability. Motivation is internal and variable. It depends on how you feel in any given moment. Some days you feel inspired, some days you feel nothing. And if your discipline requires inspiration, it only works on inspired days. But systems are external and stable. They do not care how you feel, they just run. Same time, same place, same action, whether you are motivated or not. And that consistency is what builds discipline that lasts, not for weeks, for years. This is why you need to stop chasing motivation and start building systems. A system is a repeatable structure that functions independently of emotion. It does not ask if you feel like it. It just executes. And execution is what creates results, not intention, not inspiration, execution. And execution only happens when the behavior is locked into a system that runs whether you feel ready or not. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone wants to exercise regularly. Right now they work out when they feel motivated. Some weeks they go 5 times. Other weeks they go once. The results are inconsistent because the behavior is inconsistent. Now imagine they have a system. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 in the morning they work out. No debate, no decision. The system runs. Some days they feel great. Some days they feel terrible, but they go anyway. Not because they are motivated, because the system does not require motivation. It just requires showing up. And showing up is easier than deciding whether to show up. Another example, someone wants to write a book. Right now they write when inspiration strikes. Sometimes that is 3 hours in one day. Sometimes that is nothing for 2 weeks. Progress is slow because the work is sporadic. Now imagine they have a system. Every morning from 6 to 7 they write. Same time, same desk, same document already open, whether they feel inspired or not. Some days the writing is good, some days it is terrible, but the work happens. And over 6 months, the book is done. Not because they stayed motivated, because the system carried them through the unmotivated days. This is the shift. Stop depending on how you feel. Start depending on what you built. Motivation is unreliable, systems are not. And the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start following the system regardless, discipline becomes automatic. Not because it is easy, because it is structured. Here is the script you need when motivation is gone. Do not say, "I lost motivation, so I cannot do this." Say, "Motivation is gone, but my system does not need it." Do not say, "I will do it when I feel inspired." Say, "I will do it because the system runs whether I feel inspired or not." Do not say, "I need to get motivated first." Say, "I need to follow the system and motivation will follow action." This reframe is critical because most people think motivation comes first and action follows. But the opposite is true. Action comes first and motivation follows. When you act, even without feeling like it, the brain starts to engage. Energy builds, momentum forms, and suddenly the task feels easier. Not because motivation returned, because action created momentum, and momentum feels like motivation, but it is not. It is structure in motion. Now here is the practical exercise. Choose one behavior you want to make consistent. It could be exercise, it could be focused work, it could be reading, it could be planning your day. Do not rely on motivation. Build a system instead. Write down 3 things. First, when will you do it? Pick a specific time, not sometime in the morning, a specific hour. Second, where will you do it? Pick a specific place, not anywhere, one location. Third, what is the smallest version of this action? Not the ideal version, the version you can do even on a bad day. Now you have a system. Same time, same place, small action, follow it for 30 days. Do not negotiate, do not skip, do not wait to feel ready, just execute. And watch what happens. The behavior becomes automatic. Not because you stayed motivated, because the system made it automatic. The reason this works is because the brain adapts to repetition, not to emotion. When you repeat the same behavior in the same context, the brain creates a neural pathway. The more you repeat, the stronger the pathway. The stronger the pathway, the less effort the behavior requires. Eventually, the behavior happens without thought. That is automaticity. And automaticity does not need motivation. It just runs. Most people quit when motivation fades. They think if they do not feel like doing it, they should not do it. But that is backwards. The days you do not feel like it are the days that matter most. Because those are the days that build the system. Those are the days that prove you do not need motivation. Those are the days that separate people who stay consistent from people who restart constantly. Think about people whose discipline never wavers. They do not feel motivated every day. Most days they feel nothing, but they show up anyway. Not because they are stronger, because they have systems that do not ask how they feel. The alarm rings, they get up, the time comes, they work, the system runs, and over time the results compound. Not from motivation, from consistency. And consistency only happens through systems. Right now, your discipline probably depends on feeling motivated, and that is why it collapses so often. Because motivation is rare. But if you build systems, your discipline becomes independent of emotion. It functions in any emotional state. It survives bad moods, it survives low energy, it survives stress. Because it was never built on feeling. It was built on structure, so stop chasing motivation. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start building systems that run whether you feel like it or not. Lock in the time, lock in the place, lock in the action, and let the system carry you through the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. That is how discipline becomes permanent. Not through feeling, through structure. And structure is something you control. Systems hold when motivation is gone. Build the system, follow the system, and discipline will follow. Chapter 4. Designing Routines for Bad Days. Priya had a perfect routine. Every morning she woke at 5:30. She made a smoothie with 8 ingredients. She did a full yoga flow for 30 minutes. She journaled for 15. She showered and got ready with care. The routine took 90 minutes, and when life was calm, it was flawless. Then her child got sick. Sleep became broken. Mornings became chaos. The 90-minute routine was impossible, so she skipped it entirely. The chain broke, the identity weakened, and restarting felt heavy. She did not know she could have saved the routine by making it flexible. This is the mistake most people make. They design routines for their best days. They optimize for maximum output. They create structures that require time, energy, and perfect conditions. And when those conditions exist, the routines produce incredible results. But life rarely gives you perfect conditions. Most days are average. Some days are terrible. And if your routine only works on good days, it will fail more often than it succeeds. Real discipline is not what you do when everything is perfect. It is what you do when everything is falling apart. The psychological mechanism here is all or nothing thinking. When your routine is rigid, you believe you either do it fully or not at all. If you cannot do the 90-minute version, you skip entirely. But this thinking destroys consistency, because full execution is rare, and rare execution does not build habits. Flexible execution does. You need routines that have layers, a version for good days, a version for average days, a version for bad days. And the bad day version is the most important because bad days are where discipline is tested. And if you have no plan for bad days, discipline collapses. This is why you need to design routines with tiers. The ideal tier is what you do when capacity is high. The minimum tier is what you do when capacity is low. The survival tier is what you do when capacity is almost gone. And the survival tier is not impressive. It is not optimal. But it keeps the chain alive. And the chain is what preserves identity. And identity is what allows discipline to return when capacity recovers. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone has a 1-hour morning routine, meditation, exercise, reading, planning. When life is stable, they do the full hour. But when stress arrives, the hour feels impossible. So they skip. The routine dies. Now imagine they designed for bad days. The ideal routine is 1 hour. The minimum routine is 20 minutes. Wake up. Do 10 push-ups. Drink water. Write one priority. That is it. The survival routine is 5 minutes. Wake up. Take 3 deep breaths. Drink water. When bad days come, they do not skip. They switch to minimum or survival. The chain stays alive. And when capacity returns, they scale back up. They do not restart. They expand. Another example, someone cooks healthy meals every night. The routine takes 45 minutes, chopping, cooking, cleaning. When they have time and energy, it works. But when they get home exhausted, the routine is too much. So they order takeout. The habit breaks. Now imagine they designed for bad days. The ideal is cooking from scratch. The minimum is heating pre-prepped meals. The survival is a rotisserie chicken and bagged salad. When exhaustion hits, they do not abandon the goal. They switch to minimum or survival. The behavior continues. The identity holds. They are still someone who eats well, just at a lower tier. This is the shift. Stop expecting yourself to perform the same on every day. You will not. Some days you will have energy. Some days you will not. But you can still show up. You can still do something. And something is infinitely better than nothing. Because something keeps the habit alive, nothing kills it. Here is the script you need when your routine feels impossible. Do not say, I cannot do my routine, so I will skip it. Say, I cannot do my full routine, so I will do the minimum version. Do not say, today does not count. Say, today counts more because I showed up anyway. Do not say, I failed because I only did 5 minutes. Say, I succeeded because I kept the chain alive. This reframe is everything, because discipline is not measured by intensity. It is measured by consistency. And consistency on bad days is worth more than intensity on good days. Anyone can perform when conditions are perfect. The people who stay disciplined are the ones who show up when conditions are terrible. And they do not show up with their best. They show up with whatever they have, and whatever they have is enough. Now here is the practical exercise. Take your current routine, write down the ideal version, every step, every detail. Now create 2 more versions, the minimum version. What is the smallest version of this routine that still serves the core purpose? Not what you hope to do, what you can do on an average day with limited time and energy. Then create the survival version. What is the absolute minimum action that keeps the habit alive? It could be 1 minute. It could be 1 action. As long as it connects to the behavior, it counts. Write all 3 versions down: ideal, minimum, survival. Commit to this rule. On good days, do ideal. On average days, do minimum. On bad days, do survival. But the chain never breaks. The behavior continues. And when conditions improve, you scale back up. You do not restart. You just expand. The reason this works is because the brain tracks patterns, not performance. If you do something every day, even if it is small, the identity stays intact. You are still someone who exercises. You are still someone who plans. You are still someone who shows up. But if you skip entirely, the identity weakens, and once the identity weakens, restarting becomes harder. So the goal is not to do everything perfectly. The goal is to never fully stop, and tiered routines make that possible. Most people optimize for performance and ignore survival. They build routines that produce maximum results under ideal conditions, but they do not ask what happens when conditions change. And conditions always change. Life disrupts, energy drops, time disappears, and if your routine has no flexibility, it collapses. But if your routine was designed with bad days in mind, it survives, it bends, it scales down, but it does not break. Think about people whose discipline holds under any circumstance. They do not have easier lives. They have more flexible routines. They do not depend on perfect conditions. They have versions of their routine that work when exhausted, when busy, when stressed, when sick. That is not luck. That is design. And you can design the same way. Right now, most of your routines are probably optimized for ideal conditions. And that is why they collapse under pressure, because pressure removes ideal conditions. But if you add flexibility now, before stress hits, your routines will survive when pressure arrives. You will not have to rebuild. You will just adapt. And adaptation is faster, easier, and less draining than reconstruction. So stop building rigid routines. Start building flexible ones. Add the tiers. Know the minimum. Know the survival version. And when disruption comes, you will not panic. You will not collapse. You will just switch modes. And the discipline will hold, not because life got easier, because the routine was designed to survive. Routines for bad days are not about lowering standards. They are about protecting consistency. And consistency is what builds permanence. Chapter 5, Identity-Based Discipline Under Pressure. Victor saw himself as disciplined. He was the person who never missed a workout, the person who always followed through, the person others respected for consistency. His identity was built on showing up. Then he got injured, a back strain that kept him from lifting. The doctor said rest for 6 weeks. At first, Victor tried to stay active. He walked, he stretched, but it did not feel like enough. He started thinking, if I am not lifting, am I still disciplined? If I am not training hard, who am I? And slowly the identity began to crack. He stopped stretching. He stopped walking. He stopped planning. Because if he could not be the disciplined person he thought he was, what was the point? This is what happens when identity is rigid. When your sense of self is tied to specific actions, losing those actions feels like losing yourself. And when you lose yourself, discipline has nothing to anchor to. Because discipline is not just behavior. It is belief. It is who you think you are. And if that belief is fragile, pressure will shatter it. But if that belief is flexible, pressure will refine it. The difference is not in the circumstances, it is in how identity is defined. The psychological mechanism here is identity rigidity versus identity resilience. Rigid identity says I am disciplined because I do this specific thing. If that thing stops, the identity collapses. Resilient identity says I am disciplined because I show up in whatever form is possible. The action may change, but the core remains. And the core is not what you do, it is how you respond. Rigid identity breaks under pressure. Resilient identity adapts. This is why you need to define discipline as direction, not perfection. You are not disciplined because you do everything right. You are disciplined because you keep choosing to move forward even when things go wrong. You are not disciplined because you never fail. You are disciplined because you keep showing up after failure. That definition cannot be destroyed by circumstance, because it is not tied to specific outcomes. It is tied to persistent effort, and effort is always available. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone identifies as a runner. They run every day, then they injure their knee. Running is off the table. If their identity is rigid, they think I am not a runner anymore. The identity dies. Discipline collapses. Now imagine their identity is resilient. They think I am someone who moves my body daily. Running is paused, but I can walk. I can swim. I can do physical therapy exercises. The action changed, but the identity held. They are still someone who prioritizes movement. And when the knee heals, running returns. But the identity never left, because it was not tied to one action. Another example, someone identifies as productive. They work in deep focus for 4 hours every day. Then they have a newborn. Sleep is broken. Focus is scattered. 4 hours is impossible. If their identity is rigid, they think I am not productive anymore. The identity weakens. Discipline fades. Now imagine their identity is resilient. They think I am someone who makes progress daily. Deep focus is paused. But I can work in 15-minute blocks. I can do one small task. I can move something forward. The output is smaller. But the identity holds. They are still someone who prioritizes progress. And when sleep stabilizes, deep focus returns. But the identity never wavered. This is the shift. Stop tying your identity to perfect performance. Start tying it to persistent direction. You are not someone who never struggles. You are someone who keeps going through struggle. You are not someone who never fails. You are someone who shows up after failure. That identity is unbreakable because it was built to survive pressure. Here's the script you need when pressure challenges your identity. Do not say I am not disciplined anymore. Say I am disciplined in a different way right now. Do not say I lost who I am. Say I am adapting who I am to new conditions. Do not say I failed, so I am not that person. Say I failed and I am still that person because I am here trying again. This reframe is critical because identity is not about never falling. It is about always getting back up. And getting back up is a choice you make every time you show up. Even when the version of showing up is smaller, even when it does not look like it used to. You are still voting for the identity, and every vote counts. Now here is the practical exercise. Write down the identity you want to hold under pressure. Not the behaviors, the identity. I am someone who shows up even when it is hard. I am someone who adapts without quitting. I am someone who keeps moving forward no matter what form that takes. Write it as a statement. Now commit to voting for that identity every day, even if the vote is small, even if you only do the minimum. Every action that aligns with the identity is a vote, and votes compound. If your identity is I am someone who moves my body daily, then even 5 minutes of stretching counts. If your identity is I am someone who creates, then even one sentence counts. If your identity is I am someone who plans ahead, then even writing one priority counts. You are not trying to be perfect. You are trying to stay consistent with who you are. And consistency, even imperfect consistency, keeps identity intact. The reason this works is because identity is reinforced through repetition, not through intensity. One perfect action does not build identity. 50 imperfect actions do, because the brain is tracking the pattern, and the pattern says, this is who I am, this is what I do, even when it is hard, even when I fail. I keep voting for this version of myself, and that is what makes identity pressure-proof. Most people build identity on outcomes. They think discipline is about never failing. So when pressure arrives and they fail, the identity collapses. But real identity is not built on perfection. It is built on persistence. It is built on showing up even after you fall. It is built on choosing the behavior again after you skip it. That is resilience. And resilient identity survives stress. Think about people whose sense of self does not waver under pressure. They do not perform perfectly, but they do not abandon who they are. They fail, they struggle, they have bad days. But they keep voting for the identity, they keep showing up. And because of that, the identity holds. And when identity holds, discipline returns. Not because stress disappeared, because the person inside the stress stayed anchored. Right now, your identity is probably tied to specific actions, and that is why stress destabilizes it, because stress disrupts actions. But if you redefine identity as direction instead of perfection, it becomes unshakable. You are not someone who never struggles. You are someone who keeps going through struggle. You are not someone who never falls. You are someone who always gets back up. That identity cannot be broken by stress, because it was built to survive it. So stop tying your identity to perfect performance. Start tying it to persistent effort. You are not defined by how well you do. You are defined by whether you keep choosing. And as long as you keep choosing, the identity holds. And as long as the identity holds, discipline has a foundation to return to. Identity under pressure is not about being unshakable. It is about being able to rebuild after you shake. And rebuilding starts with one vote, one small action that says, "This is still who I am." That vote matters more than any perfect performance ever could. Vote for your identity, especially when pressure makes it hard. That is where discipline becomes permanent. Chapter 6. Removing stress triggers from daily life. Amir was stressed every day, but he could not figure out why. He slept enough, he ate well, he exercised. But by noon, his chest felt tight. His mind raced, his patience was thin. He thought stress was coming from work, from deadlines, from people. But when he analyzed his day, he realized the stress was self-inflicted. Every morning he checked the news. Every hour he checked email. Every evening he scrolled arguments on social media. He was feeding his nervous system stress before stress even arrived, and by the time real pressure hit, he had no capacity left to handle it. This is the problem most people miss. They think stress is something that happens to them. But most stress is something they create, not intentionally, but through habits that activate the nervous system repeatedly throughout the day. Checking bad news, consuming conflict, reacting to every notification, saying yes to commitments they do not have time for. Each of these is a small stressor, and small stressors accumulate. By the time real stress arrives, the system is already overloaded, and an overloaded system cannot handle more pressure. So discipline collapses, not because the stress was too big, because the baseline was already too high. The psychological mechanism here is cumulative stress load. Your nervous system has a threshold. When activation stays below the threshold, you can think clearly. You can regulate emotions, you can execute discipline. But when activation exceeds the threshold, the system goes into survival mode. And survival mode does not support discipline, it supports reactivity. And most people live above the threshold without realizing it. They never downregulate, they never create space. They just keep adding activation, and then they wonder why discipline feels impossible. This is why you need to audit your day for stress triggers. These are not just big events. These are small inputs that activate your nervous system repeatedly. And when you remove them, your baseline drops. You create capacity. And that capacity is what allows discipline to function under real pressure. Because now, when stress arrives, you have room to handle it. You are not already maxed out. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone starts every morning by checking the news. Headlines about conflict, crisis, disaster. Within 5 minutes, their nervous system is activated. Cortisol rises. The sympathetic system engages. They have not even started their day and they are already stressed. Now imagine they change the habit. No news in the morning. They start with silence, or music, or planning. The baseline stays calm. When real stress arrives later, they have capacity to handle it. The discipline holds because the nervous system was not preloaded with activation. Another example, someone keeps their phone next to them all day. Notifications come constantly, email, messages, social media. Every notification is a micro-interruption. Every interruption activates the nervous system slightly. By the end of the day, they feel drained, not from work, from constant activation. Now imagine they change the system. Phone goes in a drawer, notifications off. They check twice a day on a schedule. The interruptions stop. The nervous system stays regulated. Discipline becomes easier because the baseline is stable. This is the shift. Stop adding stress to your day through habits you can control. Most of the stress you experience is optional. It is self-inflicted, and it is removable. You do not need willpower to handle it. You need awareness. And once you see the triggers, you can eliminate them. And elimination is what creates space, and space is what allows discipline to survive pressure. Here is the script you need when stress feels overwhelming. Do not say life is too stressful. Say I am feeding my nervous system stress through my habits. Do not say I cannot handle this. Say my baseline is too high and I need to lower it. Do not say stress is unavoidable. Say most of my stress is optional and I will remove it. This reframe is critical, because when you see stress as external, you feel powerless. When you see it as self-created, you can fix it. And fixing it is simpler than most people think. You do not need to change your life. You need to change your inputs. And inputs are always controllable. Now here is the practical exercise. Write down everything you consume in a typical day. News, social media, email, messages, conversations, content, all of it. Now go through the list and mark each item as calming, neutral, or activating. Be honest. Most of what you consume is activating. It triggers stress, it raises cortisol, it dysregulates the nervous system. Now ask yourself, which of these can I remove entirely? Which can I reduce? Which can I delay until later in the day? If you check news first thing in the morning, stop. Delay it until evening or eliminate it entirely. If you scroll social media throughout the day, delete the apps. If you check email constantly, set 2 times a day and ignore it otherwise. If you engage in arguments online, stop. It is not helping you. It is draining you. Every input you remove is activation you eliminate. And every bit of activation you eliminate is capacity you gain. And capacity is what allows discipline to function. The reason this works is because the nervous system is input sensitive. What you feed it determines how it responds. If you feed it stress, it stays activated. If you feed it calm, it stays regulated. And regulation is the foundation of discipline. You cannot be disciplined when your nervous system is dysregulated. But when it is calm, discipline becomes accessible, not because you became stronger. Because the system was given space to function. Most people add stress without realizing it. They think checking news is harmless. They think scrolling is relaxing. They think being available all the time is responsible. But these habits are not neutral. They are activating. And activation compounds. And compounded activation is what destroys discipline under pressure. Because when real stress hits, there is no room left. Think about people who stay calm under extreme pressure. They do not consume less stress in their lives. They consume less stress in their habits. They do not check news constantly. They do not engage with conflict. They do not stay plugged into every source of activation. They guard their inputs. They protect their nervous system. And because of that, when real pressure arrives, they have capacity. They have space. And space is what allows them to stay disciplined when others collapse. Right now, you are probably feeding your nervous system stress all day without realizing it. And that is why discipline feels hard. Not because the tasks are hard, because your baseline is too high. But if you audit your inputs and remove the unnecessary stressors, your baseline will drop. You will feel calmer, you will think clearer, and discipline will become easier. Not because you got better at it, because you stopped making it harder than it needs to be. So stop consuming stress, stop engaging with conflict, stop checking every notification, stop saying yes to every request, start protecting your nervous system like it is your most valuable resource. Because it is. And when you protect it, discipline stops being a battle, it becomes a natural response. Because the system is calm enough to support it. Remove the triggers, lower the baseline, create the space, and watch discipline become easier than it has ever been. Chapter 7. Discipline in Chaos, Work, Family, Fatigue. Sonia was a project manager and a mother of 2. Her mornings started at 6, getting the kids ready, packing lunches, dropping them at school, then straight to work, meetings, deadlines, decisions. By evening, she was exhausted. Dinner, homework, bedtime routines. By the time the house was quiet, it was 10 at night, and she had promised herself she would exercise. She had promised herself she would plan tomorrow. She had promised herself she would read, but she had nothing left. So she collapsed on the couch and scrolled her phone until midnight. And the next day, the cycle repeated. She wanted discipline, but chaos gave her no space to build it. This is the reality most people live in. Life is not structured. It is fragmented. Work bleeds into family. Family bleeds into exhaustion. Exhaustion bleeds into reactive behavior. And discipline, which requires clarity and capacity, has no room to exist. Most people think they need more time. But time is not the issue. The issue is that their energy is scattered across too many competing demands. And when energy is scattered, discipline is impossible. Not because you are failing. Because the structure of your life is working against you. The psychological mechanism here is competing demand overload. Your brain can only prioritize one thing at a time. But when everything feels urgent, nothing gets prioritized. Work demands attention. Family demands attention. Your health demands attention. And when all demands are equal, the brain defaults to whatever feels most pressing in the moment, which is rarely what matters most. So discipline dies. Not because you do not care, because your attention is being pulled in too many directions at once. And fragmented attention cannot sustain focus. And without focus, discipline cannot function. This is why you need to create non-negotiable anchors in chaos, not elaborate routines, not hour-long rituals. Anchors. Small, fixed behaviors that happen no matter what the day looks like. These anchors are not optional. They are not flexible. They do not move based on how busy you are. They just happen. Same time, same action, every day. And these anchors are what keep discipline alive when everything else is falling apart. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone works unpredictable hours. Some days they start at 7. Other days they start at noon. A fixed morning routine does not work. But they have an anchor. Before they start work, no matter what time that is, they take 3 minutes. They sit. They breathe. They write one priority for the day. 3 minutes. That is it. The anchor holds, and that anchor keeps their identity intact. They are still someone who starts with intention, even when the schedule is chaos. Another example, someone has young children. Mornings are unpredictable. Some days the kids wake early, some days they wake late. Some days someone is sick. A detailed morning routine is impossible, but they have an anchor. While the coffee brews, they do 10 push-ups. Every single morning, no matter what else is happening. The anchor takes 90 seconds, but it keeps the chain alive. They are still someone who moves their body daily, even when everything else is chaos. This is the shift. Stop trying to control the entire day. Start controlling 2 or 3 moments. Moments so small that chaos cannot destroy them. Moments that require no preparation, no equipment, no specific conditions. Just a decision to do them. And when you protect those moments, discipline survives. Not because you are doing everything, because you are doing something. And something is what keeps the identity alive. Here is the script you need when life feels too chaotic for discipline. Do not say, "I am too busy to be disciplined." Say, "I will build discipline through small anchors that survive chaos." Do not say, "I need more time." Say, "I need better structure in the time I have." Do not say, "Chaos destroyed my discipline." Say, "My anchors held even when everything else fell apart." This reframe is critical, because chaos is not the problem. Lack of anchors is, and anchors are always buildable. No matter how chaotic your life is, you can protect 2 or 3 moments. And those moments are enough, not to transform your life overnight, but to keep discipline alive, and alive is all you need. Because alive can grow, dead cannot. Now here is the practical exercise. Identify the most chaotic parts of your day, the times when competing demands are highest. Morning, evening, workday, wherever chaos lives. Now ask yourself, what is one action I can anchor in that chaos? Not a full routine. One action. It needs to meet 3 criteria. First, it must be short, no more than 5 minutes. Second, it must require no preparation, no tools, no specific location. Third, it must connect to your identity or goals. Examples of anchors in chaos: taking 3 deep breaths before starting work, drinking a glass of water before checking your phone, doing 5 squats while waiting for coffee, writing 1 sentence in a journal before bed, walking for 2 minutes during lunch. These are small, but they are powerful, because they do not depend on having time. They depend on making a decision, and decisions are always available. Write down your 2 or 3 anchors. Commit to doing them every day for 30 days, no matter what, no exceptions. Do not try to add a full routine yet. Just lock in the anchors, and watch what happens. The anchors become automatic, and once they are automatic, you can build around them. But the anchors come first, because the anchors are what survive when everything else collapses. The reason this works is because anchors create psychological continuity. Even when your schedule is chaos, the anchors stay the same. And that sameness signals to your brain that you are still on track. You are still disciplined. You are still the person who shows up. That signal is enough to prevent identity collapse. And when identity holds, discipline can rebuild. But if you lose the anchors, you lose the signal. And without the signal, discipline has nothing to return to. Most people try to build discipline through full routines. They create detailed schedules. They optimize every hour. And when life is stable, it works. But when life gets chaotic, the routine falls apart, and they are left with nothing. But if you build discipline through anchors, you always have something. The anchors are always there. They do not require stability. They create it. Think about people whose discipline seems unshakable no matter what happens in their life. They do not have perfect schedules. They have unshakable anchors. Small rituals that never change, that never skip, that never negotiate. And those rituals are the foundation. Everything else can fall apart. But the anchors hold. And as long as the anchors hold, discipline holds. Right now, your discipline probably depends on having a calm, structured day. And that is why it collapses when life gets chaotic. Because chaos destroys structure. But anchors do not need structure. Anchors create structure in chaos. They are the fixed points that hold when everything else is moving. And if you build your discipline on anchors instead of routines, it will survive pressure that would break any routine. So stop trying to control the entire day. Start controlling 2 or 3 moments. Make those moments unshakable. Make them so simple that nothing can disrupt them. And let those moments be the foundation. When chaos hits, the routine might break, but the anchors will not. And the anchors are enough to keep you grounded, enough to keep your identity intact, enough to keep discipline alive until conditions stabilize. Discipline in chaos is not about doing more. It is about protecting less. Protect the anchors, and the anchors will protect you. Chapter 8. Making Structure Stronger Than Emotion. Liam woke up every day with good intentions. He planned to work out. He planned to eat well. He planned to stay focused. But by midday, the intentions were gone. He felt tired. He felt stressed. He felt unmotivated. And he let those feelings decide his actions. If he felt like working out, he did. If he did not, he skipped. If he felt focused, he worked. If he did not, he scrolled. His discipline was entirely controlled by his emotional state. And emotional states are unstable, so his discipline was unstable, and he could not figure out why he kept failing. The reason was simple. He was letting emotion make decisions that structure should make. This is the trap most people fall into. They believe feelings should guide actions. If I feel like it, I do it. If I do not feel like it, I skip it. But feelings are terrible decision makers. They fluctuate based on sleep, stress, hormones, weather, and 100 other factors you cannot control. And if your discipline depends on feeling ready, it will fail constantly, because you will rarely feel ready. Real discipline is not about doing things when you feel like it. It is about doing things regardless of how you feel. And the way you do that is by making structure stronger than emotion. The psychological mechanism here is emotional primacy versus structural override. Most people operate with emotional primacy. They check how they feel before they act. And if the feeling is negative, they do not act. But disciplined people operate with structural override. They do not check how they feel. They check what the structure says. And the structure does not care about feelings. It just runs. Same time, same action, whether you feel like it or not. And that detachment from emotion is what makes discipline consistent. This is why you need to stop negotiating with your feelings. Feelings will always have an opinion, and most of the time that opinion will be do the easy thing. Avoid discomfort, choose relief. But if you listen to that opinion, you will never build anything. Because building requires discomfort. It requires doing things you do not feel like doing. And the only way to do that consistently is to build a structure that does not ask for permission from your emotions. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone has a rule. They work out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 in the morning. One Friday, they wake up feeling exhausted. The emotion says skip it. But the structure says it is Friday at 6. The structure wins. They get up. They work out. Not because they felt like it, because the structure does not negotiate. And after the workout, the exhaustion fades. They feel accomplished. The emotion was wrong. But if they had listened to it, they would have skipped, and the chain would have broken. Another example, someone has a rule, no phone after 9 at night. One evening they feel bored. The emotion says just check it for 5 minutes, but the structure says no phone after 9. The structure wins. They put the phone away. They read instead. Not because they felt like reading, because the structure overrides the impulse. And after 30 minutes, the boredom fades. They feel calm. The emotion wanted distraction. But the structure gave them rest. And rest is what they needed, not what they wanted. This is the shift. Stop letting emotions make decisions. Emotions are useful for information. They tell you how you feel. But they should not decide what you do. That is the job of structure. And structure is built in advance. When you are calm, when you are clear, when you can think rationally. You decide the rules then. And when emotions arrive, the rules do not change. They just run. Here is the script you need when emotions try to override structure. Do not say, I do not feel like it, so I will skip it. Say, I do not feel like it, but the structure does not care. Do not say, I will do it when I feel ready. Say, the structure runs whether I feel ready or not. Do not say, my feelings matter more than the plan. Say, my feelings are temporary, but the structure is permanent. This reframe is critical, because feelings are not facts. They are reactions. And reactions change. But structure does not. And when you stop treating feelings as decision makers, discipline becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You do not debate. You do not negotiate. You just follow the structure. And the structure carries you through the moments when emotion would make you quit. Now here is the practical exercise. Identify the 3 behaviors where emotion currently controls your decisions. These are moments where you check how you feel before you act. It could be exercising. It could be working on a priority task. It could be eating well. Write them down. Now create a structural rule for each. Not a suggestion, a rule. a non-negotiable decision made in advance. If the behavior is exercise, the rule might be I work out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 in the morning regardless of how I feel. If the behavior is focused work, the rule might be I work on my priority task from 8 to 9 every morning without checking email first. If the behavior is eating well, the rule might be I do not eat snacks after 8 at night no matter what. Write the rules clearly, make them specific, and commit to following them regardless of emotion. The reason this works is because pre-commitment removes in-the-moment decision-making. When you decide in advance, you eliminate the opportunity for emotion to interfere. You are not asking yourself if you feel like it. You already decided, and now you just execute. This is how you make structure stronger than emotion. You build the structure when you are calm, and you follow it when you are not. Most people wait until the moment arrives and then decide based on how they feel in that moment. But that moment is the worst time to decide. Because in that moment, emotion is loud, discomfort is present, resistance is strong, and the easiest choice is always to quit. But if you decided in advance, the choice is already made. You are not choosing, you are following. And following is easier than choosing. Think about people whose discipline never wavers. They do not feel motivated every day. Most days they feel nothing, but they act anyway. Not because they are emotionless. Because they do not let emotion decide, they build structure. And the structure runs. They wake up. They do not ask how they feel. They just get up. The time comes. They do not ask if they feel like working. They just start. The structure decides. Emotion observes. And because of that separation, discipline becomes automatic. Right now, your discipline probably depends on how you feel. And that is why it is inconsistent, because feelings are inconsistent. But if you build structure that overrides emotion, discipline becomes consistent. It functions on good days. It functions on bad days. It functions when you are motivated. It functions when you are not. Because it was never tied to emotion in the first place. It was tied to structure. And structure is stable, so stop checking how you feel before you act. Stop giving emotion veto power over your decisions. Build the structure in advance. Make the rules clear. And follow them regardless of what emotion says in the moment. That is how discipline becomes unshakable. Not because you stopped feeling, because you stopped letting feelings make decisions. Structure is stronger than emotion. Build the structure, follow the structure, and let the structure carry you through every emotional state you face. Chapter 9. Recovering Fast After Failure. Nina had been consistent for 3 months. She worked out every morning, she ate well, she stayed organized. The discipline felt solid. Then she traveled for a wedding. The schedule broke. She skipped workouts. She ate poorly. She stayed up late. And when she returned home, she felt guilty. She told herself she would restart Monday. But Monday came and she did not. She told herself next Monday. That did not happen either. 3 months of progress disappeared in 3 weeks, not because the trip destroyed her discipline, because she did not know how to recover after breaking the chain. This is where most people lose everything. They build momentum. Then life disrupts, they break the routine. And instead of recovering immediately, they spiral. 1 missed day becomes 3, 3 becomes a week becomes a month, and before they know it, they are back where they started. Not because the disruption was too big, because they treated the break as a collapse instead of a pause, and collapse thinking prevents recovery, but pause thinking allows it. The psychological mechanism here is binary failure perception. Most people see discipline as all or nothing. Either you are following the routine or you are not. Either the chain is intact or it is broken. And when the chain breaks, they think the system is dead. So they stop trying to revive it. They wait for motivation to return. They wait for the perfect moment to restart. But that moment never comes. And the longer they wait, the harder restarting becomes. Because the identity weakens. And weak identity does not rebuild discipline. Strong identity does. And strong identity is built by recovering fast. This is why you need a recovery protocol, a plan for what to do the moment the chain breaks. Not next week, not when you feel ready, immediately. The faster you recover, the less damage the break causes, and fast recovery is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about doing something immediately. One action that reconnects you to the identity. One action that says the system is not dead. It was just paused. And now, it is back. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone misses a workout. The chain is broken. If they treat it as collapse, they skip the next day too. And the next. The routine dies, but if they treat it as pause, they act immediately. They do not wait for the next scheduled workout. They do 10 push-ups right then. That same day. The action is small, but it sends a signal. The identity is still intact. I am still someone who moves my body. The chain is not perfect, but it is alive, and alive is all that matters. Another example. Someone eats poorly one day. A stressful event. They ordered takeout, ate junk, felt terrible. If they treat it as collapse, they think the week is ruined. So they eat poorly the rest of the week too. But if they treat it as pause, they act immediately. The next meal is clean. Not tomorrow. The next meal. They do not wait for Monday to restart. They restart right now. The day is not perfect, but the trajectory is corrected. And correction is what prevents spirals. This is the shift. Stop treating breaks as failures. Start treating them as data. The chain broke. Why? What was the trigger? What can you learn? Then act immediately. Do not wait. Do not plan a restart. Just do one small action that reconnects you to the behavior. And that action is what stops the spiral. Because spirals happen when you delay recovery, but when you recover immediately, the break stays small. And small breaks do not destroy discipline. Only prolonged breaks do. Here's the script you need when the chain breaks. Do not say I failed, so I will restart Monday. Say I paused and I am resuming right now. Do not say the week is ruined. Say this moment is not ruined and I will act in this moment. Do not say I lost all my progress. Say I paused my progress and one action will reconnect me to it. This reframe is everything. Because the story you tell yourself after a break determines whether you recover or spiral. If you tell yourself you failed, you will spiral. If you tell yourself you paused, you will recover. And recovery is always one action away, not a full routine, not a perfect day, just one action, and that action is what keeps discipline alive. Now here is the practical exercise. Write down your recovery protocol. What will you do the moment the chain breaks, not the next day? That moment. If you skip a workout, what is the recovery action? Maybe it is 10 push-ups. If you eat poorly, what is the recovery action? Maybe it is drinking a liter of water and eating one clean meal. If you miss planning your day, what is the recovery action? Maybe it is writing one priority right then. Write the recovery actions down. Make them small. Make them immediate. And commit to this rule. The moment the chain breaks, you execute the recovery action. No delay, no negotiation, no waiting for Monday. You act, and that action stops the spiral before it starts. The reason this works is because immediate recovery preserves identity. When you act quickly, the brain does not register a collapse. It registers a pause, and pauses are recoverable. But when you delay, the brain starts to believe the identity is gone. And once the identity weakens, rebuilding takes exponentially more effort. So the key is speed, recover fast. And the damage stays minimal. Most people think recovery requires perfection. They think they need to restart with a full week of perfect execution. But that is intimidating, so they delay. And delaying is what destroys discipline. Real recovery is not about perfection. It is about momentum. And momentum starts with one imperfect action, one push-up, one clean meal, one priority written down. That is enough, not to erase the break, but to stop the spiral. And stopping the spiral is what keeps discipline alive. Think about people whose discipline seems permanent. They break chains too, they skip workouts, they eat poorly, they have bad days. But they do not spiral because they recover immediately. The moment they break, they act. They do not wait. They do not feel guilty, they just reconnect. And because they reconnect fast, the break stays small. And small breaks do not matter in the long term. Only prolonged spirals do. Right now, you probably delay recovery. You break the chain and then wait days or weeks to restart. And that delay is what kills discipline. But if you build a recovery protocol and execute it immediately every time the chain breaks, discipline becomes unbreakable. Not because you never fail, because you always recover. And recovery is what separates people who stay disciplined from people who restart constantly. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop planning perfect restarts. Just act. The moment the chain breaks, execute the recovery action and watch the spiral stop before it starts. That is how discipline survives failure, not by avoiding failure, but by recovering so fast that failure never becomes collapse. Failure is temporary, spirals are optional, recover fast, and discipline becomes permanent. Chapter 10. Building a Life That Self-Corrects. Amara spent years trying to build discipline. She would start strong, follow routines, stay consistent. Then something would disrupt. A trip, a crisis, a busy week, and the structure would collapse. She would spend months rebuilding, only to collapse again. The cycle repeated endlessly, and she thought the problem was her, that she was not disciplined enough, that she needed more willpower. But the real problem was that her life had no self-correcting mechanisms. When things went wrong, there was nothing to bring her back on track. She had to manually rebuild every time. And manual rebuilding is exhausting. And exhausting systems do not last. This is the final principle most people never learn. Discipline is not about never failing. It is about building a life that brings you back when you do. A life with automatic feedback loops, with structures that pull you toward the behavior instead of requiring you to push toward it constantly. A life where discipline is not a battle you fight every day, but a system that runs with minimal input. And the way you build that life is by designing self-correcting mechanisms into your routines, your environment, and your identity. The psychological mechanism here is systemic resilience through feedback. Most people build discipline through effort. They push, they force, they rely on willpower. And when the effort stops, the discipline stops. But self-correcting systems do not rely on effort. They rely on design. They have built-in triggers that redirect you when you drift. They have environmental cues that remind you who you are. They have social accountability that keeps you honest. And these mechanisms work in the background. You do not have to think about them, they just bring you back, automatically. This is why you need to stop relying on willpower and start building systems that correct themselves. Systems that notice when you drift and pull you back without requiring conscious effort. And these systems are not complicated, they are simple. But they require intentional design. You cannot build them accidentally. You have to choose them. And once you do, discipline stops being something you force. It becomes something that happens naturally because the system is designed to make it happen. Here is what this looks like in real life. Someone wants to stay consistent with exercise. Right now, they rely on remembering to go, and memory fails. So they skip. Now imagine they design a self-correcting system. They schedule workouts on their calendar with alerts. They lay out gym clothes the night before. They tell a friend they will text them after every workout. These are feedback loops. The calendar reminds them. The clothes cue the behavior. The friend creates accountability. If they drift, the system pulls them back. Not through willpower, through design. Another example, someone wants to eat well. Right now, they rely on making good choices in the moment. And in the moment, willpower is weak. So they eat poorly. Now imagine they design a self-correcting system. They meal prep every Sunday. They do not keep junk food in the house. They set a rule that if they eat poorly at one meal, the next meal is automatic. A pre-decided clean option. No debate. The system corrects itself. One bad meal does not become three, because the structure prevents spirals. This is the shift. Stop trying to force discipline through effort. Start designing systems that make discipline automatic. Systems with reminders, systems with accountability, systems with environmental cues, systems with pre-committed rules. And when you drift, the system brings you back, not because you tried harder, because the system was built to correct itself. Here is the script you need when you feel like discipline is too hard. Do not say, "I need more willpower." Say, "I need better systems." Do not say, "I keep failing." Say, "My system has no self-correcting mechanisms." Do not say, "Discipline is exhausting." Say, "Discipline is exhausting when I rely on effort instead of design." This reframe is critical, because effort-based discipline is fragile. It depends on having energy, motivation, and capacity. And those things fluctuate. But design-based discipline is stable. It does not depend on how you feel. It depends on what you built. And what you built runs whether you feel like it or not. Now here is the practical exercise. Choose one behavior you want to make permanent. Now design 3 self-correcting mechanisms for it. First, create an environmental cue. Something in your physical space that reminds you of the behavior. If the behavior is exercise, lay out your workout clothes. If the behavior is reading, leave the book on your pillow. Second, create a calendar trigger. Schedule the behavior at a fixed time with an alert. Third, create accountability. Tell someone, track it publicly. Join a group, something external that creates pressure to follow through. Write down all 3 mechanisms, now implement them, and watch what happens. You will drift less, and when you do drift, the system will bring you back faster. Not because you became more disciplined, because the system was designed to keep you on track. The reason this works is because self-correcting systems reduce the need for conscious effort. You are not relying on remembering. The calendar reminds you. You are not relying on willpower. The environment cues you. You are not relying on internal motivation. The accountability pulls you. And when multiple mechanisms are working together, discipline becomes nearly automatic. You still have to act. But the system makes acting easier than not acting. And that is the goal. Most people build discipline through brute force. They try to remember, they try to stay motivated, they try to push through resistance, and it works for a while. But eventually the effort becomes too much, and they collapse. But if you build self-correcting systems, the effort drops. The system does most of the work, and you just follow. And following is infinitely easier than forcing. Think about people whose discipline seems effortless. They are not more disciplined than you. They just have better systems. Their environment is designed to support the behavior. Their calendar is structured to protect priorities. Their social circle holds them accountable. And because of that, discipline feels natural. Not because they are special. Because they designed their life to make discipline the default. And default behaviors do not require effort. They just happen. Right now, your discipline probably depends on effort. You have to remember, you have to push, you have to fight resistance every day. And that is exhausting. But if you design self-correcting systems, the effort disappears. The system remembers for you. The system pushes for you. The system brings you back when you drift. And discipline stops being a battle. It becomes a structure that runs whether you are strong or weak, whether you are motivated or not, whether you feel like it or not. So stop relying on willpower, start building feedback loops, design environmental cues, schedule triggers, create accountability, and let the system do the work. That is how discipline becomes permanent, not through effort, through design. And design is something you control. A life that self-corrects is a life where discipline is not optional. It is automatic. Build the systems, let them run, and watch discipline become the easiest thing you do. Conclusion: living with unbreakable structure. You started this audiobook believing discipline collapses under stress because you are not strong enough. But now you know the truth. Discipline collapses because it was never designed to survive stress. It was built for calm conditions, for ideal circumstances, for days when everything goes right. And when those conditions disappeared, the discipline disappeared with them. Not because you failed, because the system was fragile. But now you have something different. You have the framework to build discipline that does not break. You learn that stress is the real test of discipline, that anyone can be consistent when life is easy. But real discipline survives chaos. You learn that willpower vanishes under pressure, that it is not a character trait but a limited resource, and systems that depend on willpower collapse when stress depletes it. So you learn to remove the need for willpower by designing environments where the right choice is automatic. You learn that motivation fades, that it is an emotion, not a foundation. And discipline built on motivation collapses the moment inspiration disappears. So you learn to build systems that run whether you feel like it or not. You learn to design routines for bad days, not just ideal days, because bad days are where discipline is proven, and tiered routines that scale down without breaking are what keep the chain alive. You learn that identity under pressure is fragile when tied to perfect performance, but resilient when tied to persistent direction. You are not someone who never fails. You are someone who keeps going after failure, and that identity cannot be destroyed by stress. You learn to remove stress triggers from daily life, to stop feeding your nervous system activation through habits you can control. And when you lower the baseline, discipline becomes accessible again. You learn to build anchors in chaos, small fixed behaviors that survive when routines collapse. And anchors are what keep discipline alive when everything else is falling apart. You learn to make structure stronger than emotion, to stop letting feelings make decisions that structure should make. And when structure overrides emotion, discipline becomes consistent regardless of how you feel. You learn to recover fast after failure, to treat breaks as pauses, not collapses. And immediate recovery is what stops spirals before they destroy progress. You learn to build a life that self-corrects, to design feedback loops that bring you back when you drift. And self-correcting systems are what make discipline permanent, because they do not rely on effort, they rely on design. This is not theory, this is framework, and framework is what functions when everything else fails. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need endless motivation. You do not need superhuman willpower. You just need better systems. And better systems are what you now know how to build. Right now, take one principle from this audiobook and apply it today, not tomorrow. Today. If your routine collapsed, switch to the minimum version. If you broke the chain, execute the recovery action immediately. If your environment is draining willpower, remove one temptation. If emotions are controlling your decisions, follow the structure instead. One principle, one action, today. Because knowing is not enough. You have to build. And building starts with one decision. One change, one action that proves the system works. And when that action works, you add another, and another. And over time, the changes compound. And what compounds becomes permanent. Discipline under stress is not about being perfect. It is about staying functional. It is not about never collapsing. It is about recovering faster than you collapse. It is not about avoiding pressure. It is about surviving pressure without losing yourself. That is unbreakable structure. And unbreakable structure is what you now have the ability to build. Stress will come. Life will disrupt. Chaos will arrive. That is guaranteed. But your discipline no longer has to collapse with it, because your discipline is no longer fragile. It is resilient. It is flexible. It is designed for reality. And reality is pressure, and you are now equipped to function inside it, not by controlling the pressure, but by controlling your response to it. You are not waiting for life to calm down anymore. You are building structure that survives chaos. You are not waiting for perfect conditions. You are creating systems that work in imperfect conditions. You are not waiting to feel ready. You are acting regardless of how you feel. That is the shift, and that shift is what makes discipline permanent. So stop restarting, stop waiting, stop collapsing, start building, start adapting, start surviving. The framework is here. The tools are clear. The only question left is whether you will use them. And the answer to that question will determine whether your discipline becomes permanent or stays temporary. The choice is yours, and the choice starts now. Discipline under stress is not about strength. It is about design. And you now know how to design it, build it, protect it, and let it carry you through whatever life brings. You are ready. Now act. If this audiobook has brought you clarity, strength, or peace, consider supporting the channel so more people can find this message. Please like this audio and subscribe. Your support helps this work reach those who feel overwhelmed, anxious, or unprotected, and gives them a path back to calm, confidence, and emotional freedom. Thank you for listening. Stay grounded. Stay wise. You are the anchor in every storm.